We think, well, people tell me I'm special and people tell me I'm worth a lot, so I'm just going to presume everybody understands that, and they don't.
Hey everyone, welcome to Creative Table. I'm here today with one of my great friends from StoryBrand, Mr. Wes Gay. Wes, thank you for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Wes has worked with over 100 different brands across the country and beyond, just helping them clarify their message, and I'm just excited to learn what he can teach us today about that. And this whole idea, I know Donna Miller talks about, if you confuse, you'll lose. Mm-hmm. Excited to dive into that, unpack what that looks like. But before we do, just give everyone a sense of who you are and what business you're in.
Yeah, so I run a marketing agency called Wayfinder, and what we do is we help companies understand and implement this StoryBrand framework. And as you know, you and I met 3.5 years ago in Nashville through the StoryBrand thing. Mm-hmm. Those who are watching, you don't know, StoryBrand is a formula where we take the principles of storytelling and then use that as a communications filter, typically in the marketing and sales contexts. So we help companies figure out what to say using a story-based approach. And then, we do all the other stuff, the websites and email marketing and all the other things that come along with
all the other bells and whistles. Yeah.
All the other things, except film, because that's what you guys do. But we do all the other things. What I always say is we help companies figure out what to say and how to say it. Because you'd be amazed, as you've encountered too, how many companies just don't know the right words to use.
Yeah.
Right? It's amazing on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm grateful because it keeps me in business.
Yeah, absolutely. So, backing up, was that something were you a trained writer coming out of school, or were you an artist? Were you a business person? What's your little bit of your past?
So I was.
How did you get here, Wes?
I took my car and followed the GPS.
Right, exactly.
And I turned.
You mean your plane, right? Your helicopter?
No, that's only for certain distances. Anyway, this is outside the helicopter radius. Anyhow, so I actually I was a music major in college, really helpful in marketing these days.
Yeah.
It kind of, but not really. So I was a music major, and then I actually worked in churches and nonprofits for about a decade. Okay. And then 2016-ish, mm-hmm. I found myself unemployed for a long stretch, and I finally came to the point where
mean in transition, or whatever they call it?
Pursuing new opportunities. Problem was, none of the opportunities were pursuing me back. And so I finally came to a point where I thought, I've tried everywhere else. It's just not working out for some reason or another. Let me just try my own thing. And I knew, I wasn't necessarily a trained writer, but I knew in everywhere I had worked, and even all the way back in high school, I knew I'd been told I was a decent writer, and I always liked it. And Donna Miller guy with StoryBrand, they were launching a copywriter certification, and I thought, I've worked in nonprofits. I don't exactly know what a copywriter does, but I'm just going to go get certified. And I literally thought, I'm going to start this as a little side thing. I got to make some money because it's been a long time since I've made real money. I was talking to an organization in Florida about being something part-time there that's going to go into full-time. And I thought, we'll move to Florida. I'll go part-time at that place, and I'll do this other thing until I get a, quote, real job. Well, that was 4 years ago, mm-hmm. and I never quite got that real job. I just created my own real job.
Yeah.
So as a copywriter, helping people figure out what do I need to say about my company so more customers buy my stuff.
Now, copywriting, is that taking place over on the website, or is that in magazines? Or, I know you did some writing with Forbes, right? Yeah. So how did that happen? Was that before that, or does that come after?
So the Forbes thing, I was a contributor to Forbes.com for about 1.5 years, and that started before I was a full-time copywriter.
Okay.
Literally, I got an email one day from a Forbes editor saying, hey, we just started this new channel. And the way Forbes works on their website is they have what they call different channels. So you'll have real estate, investing, mm-hmm. business, under 30, leadership, career, I forget all the ones they have. And the under 30 one, they had just started. And so they said, we're trying to build that out. We've seen some of the stuff you've written about millennials. And I thought, what have I written about millennials? And my second thought was, what did you see? And I didn't question it. I'm like, you're from Forbes. You're asking me to contribute a piece. I am currently sitting at my mother-in-law's house, because that's where we live, with a newborn and a 1.5-year-old. Yeah. Let me think about that. Yes, I would love to write a piece. I have no idea how to do this. I've never done this before.
It's like different Wes.
They had no idea. They didn't know I had just gotten fired a couple months before. So anyways, I said yes. I thought, what am I doing? Yeah. I think if I remember right, I had read an article about something IBM was doing.
Okay.
So I wrote an article on that. Within 3 days, the PR director at IBM reaches out to me via Twitter or email, I forget. Says, hey, loved your piece about what we're doing here. Can I put you in touch with some of the people in our company? This IBM's obviously a giant. Right. It's a juggernaut. So I thought, sure, I'd love to write a second piece for Forbes. And so I interviewed people at IBM. One of them becomes a friend. And then I emailed, one of the things I learned early in my career was from a guy I worked for. And he said, never be afraid to just ask. He's like, what's the worst they can do? Take away your birthday? No. And so I thought, I'm just going to ask Forbes, what's after these 2 or 3 guest pieces I've contributed? And so I did. I said, what's next? She said, well, if you write 1 piece a month, you're an unpaid contributor. If you write 5 or more a month, you're paid on our
5 or more.
5 or more a month at 1,000 words a piece. That's a lot. It's a lot. And so I said, let me think about that. I'll do 5s because I'm not getting paid really by anywhere else.
So if you do 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're unpaid.
But if you do 5 or more, you're paid.
Wow.
So let me do 5 or more. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this.
Yeah.
But my approach has always been, I can wing it just enough to figure it out, and then once I figure it out, I'm good. But I'm very much a fake it till you make it. So I'll run first, assume I can nail this thing down. So that's
believe it or not, that's a common theme we've heard from guests on the show. So it's funny that people come to the table, they talk to us about how you get work, how did you work with this huge company or brand or whatnot, or build this big, business, and they're like, man, I just said, yeah, sure, know how to do that.
Yeah, so that's the story of how I built this thing. It's like, so I did the Forbes thing for a year and a half. In the middle of that, become a copywriter, working for businesses on the digital stuff, so websites, email marketing, etc. But it's like, I remember it was almost a year to the day from the time I'd gotten fired from my last job. I am standing in front of a corporate marketing team of 32 or 35 people, including their big hired agency that's one of these global agencies that does all of their TV commercials and digital ads and everything else. And they've paid me to come in. It's a $1.4 billion company. They've paid me to come in because they want me to take 3 hours and explain the story brand and all this other marketing stuff. And they're taking notes and asking me questions, and I'm thinking, they have no idea who I really am. Right. Like, you have this kind of, a little bit of imposter syndrome. But then, and I'm sure this is something you've heard a lot, is that at some point you go, no, I'm just going to figure it out. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to prepare everything I can, and just have the confidence to know I think I can navigate us until I have a much clearer direction of where we need to go. But I don't have to know the whole map. I just got to know a few steps ahead, so it seems like I know the whole map. But I just got to stay just far enough ahead that they feel like they're being led somewhere, because that's what everybody's looking for, is to feel like they're being led somewhere.
Yeah, I even know teachers, shifting gears over, looking at education, that are like that. Yeah. Like, I got to teach this lesson tomorrow on this part of whatever, history, calculus, whatever. It's like, I need to know just enough, You
just got to stay ahead.
You just got to stay just far enough ahead.
Just far enough ahead.
Exactly. I love that. Yeah. Great. It's a great mindset there. It's a great mentality to have, I think, when you're trying to build something, especially as a creative. And so I know people that watch the show, they're creatives from all different circles and types, and we're just here trying to tackle, this problem of the business of art.
Yeah.
We come out of school with this great belief that we're just going to go to work and everything's going to be great, or we're going to start our own thing because we're talented over here in this platform or software or medium, and it's going to be great. And then you just hit all these road bumps or speed bumps or roadblocks and things. But there was something you said earlier before we were rolling. As a creative, I mean, I believe every business owner is a creative. I don't think you can start a company and not be creative. But you said something I thought was pretty profound. Jumping in as a creative, like, what was this like for you? And you said, first off, let's back up and define.
So a little bit more, I guess, context. I've been a musician for 20-something years now. I'm a music major in college. Parents are musicians. Sister's a music teacher. So the music side of me runs deep. And then I started getting interested in doing video stuff in high school. When it started to get it was still hard. I mean, it's much easier now, but it was easy. It was a little bit easier back then. I was, rocking a Firewire 400 cable kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
Firewire 400, Firewire 800 things.
Yeah.
So I started, and I did some of that in college, and so it was always kind of in the media stuff. And when I worked in nonprofits, I'd be on the media production side as well. But when I got into business, one of the things I learned, I just figured out early on, was one of the challenges creatives have in business is that they don't see how creativity actually works in business. Like you said, they think, I'm either coming out of school, or I'm gonna leave my job and I'm gonna break out on my own and do film or do social media or do design or whatever. And that's great, but you've got to figure out how to make money doing it, because you're only in business if you make money. Otherwise, it's a hobby, or you're a nonprofit, and you probably aren't gonna be sustained either one of those. And so what I realized pretty quickly was, well, what actually is creativity? Like, how can we define it? And I just came to the point where I was like, you know what? All creativity really is clearly identifying a problem and then solving said problem.
Solution.
That's it. That's all creativity is. And I learned that some from my first job out of college. I worked for this nonprofit in Florida, in Orlando. We're doing a board retreat while I was there. And our president had invited several people to be with the board over the weekend. We're at Bay Hills, famous golf course down there, for dinner. And one of the guys at my table was a guest, and he was a former Disney Imagineer. And our president was friends with him, so he brought him in. And so we're all fascinated by what this guy used to do. And so he's telling us about stuff they built at Disney World and Disneyland. And if you're not familiar with the Imagineers, like, their work is, they're these creative engineers.
Yeah, side note, there's a huge show on Disney Plus that goes in, like, I don't know.
Oh, the Imagineering story is fascinating.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's
you
fantastic.
Should, and go follow Joe Rohde. Are you familiar? He's the Imagineer, Rohde.
Okay.
He built Animal Kingdom. He's built stuff all over the world. He's got this long, crazy earring on his left ear. But his Instagram is fascinating. He's got some incredible stories. They're doing a video series with him now. Anyways, he's super interesting. But one of the things I listened to him, he talked about how he was one of the first wave of Imagineers that left in the 90s to go do consulting, specifically around taking Imagineering principles and applying them to churches and different construction facilities. And so the first big project he did was in the late 90s in Southern California, and they had this thing they wanted to build. But he said, we had the idea on a whiteboard or a Post-it note. He said the problem was we knew not to go any further until we defined a few things, like what does gravity say about what we're trying to build? Mm-hmm. What are the county ordinances involved? What are the city ordinances? What are the state requirements? All these kind of things. And he eventually said was, you have to clearly define the box before you ever solve a problem. He said, people think Disney Imagineers just think outside the box, and he's all this kind of thing. He said, no, you got to think budget, timeline, stakeholders. Does this fit the vision? Does this fit what gravity supports and physics and what the laws require, et cetera? And he said, so the more clearly you define the boundaries, the better you're going to create something in that box, as opposed to this thinking outside the box. So I think what creativity really boils down to, again, is can I clearly identify the problem, which is hard. Mm-hmm. But once you clearly identify the problem, the solution becomes pretty evident pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right? So you take that principle of creativity and then start applying it to business. Well, what's the problem? I've got to make money. I've got to take this thing that I like doing or that I'm good at. Hopefully it's both things that intersect. My problem is, how do I make money doing this? Well, now I can identify my problem. I can go to work building some creative solutions. Do I need to go find clients? Do I need to build a following online and do an online course? Do I sell my work pre-done on somewhere? Like what?
Right.
What else? But that doesn't happen. You don't get my solution until I define my problem, and then I can apply my creative brain to the side that says, how do I solve the problem of making money?
I know a lot of people jump out there. I feel like I've seen this where you'll just jump out and start offering something. Mm-hmm. You don't even know if it's if there was a demand or desire for that, or if there was a problem that's intersecting with. That's really interesting. It's important to think through those things for sure. You've got this agency you mentioned. It's called Wayfinder, right? Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like, how did that get started? What was the impetus behind all that?
So I started freelancing in 2016, and I got certified as a copywriter, October 2016. By like November, I was essentially running a full-time business.
Okay. And so things took off pretty quick. It
was a rocket.
Was that something that, because of how you marketed yourself, or is it the phone just kept ringing because StoryBrand was sending you over clients?
So StoryBrand wasn't really sending much back in those days. Okay. Anybody who was interested, they would send a PDF of all of us who were certified. There was like 10 of us. Yeah. And then people would call that way. But it was me being more proactive. Again, this creativity thing of, I now have, I've paid to be certified.
You got the certification,
I'm living at my mother-in-law's house.
Yeah.
I've got a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. We've lived at her house for over a year now, and it's not big. I've got to make money, period. That's my problem. So my solution was, how do I go find people who need what I can do and now uniquely certified to do? And this, in the StoryBrand world, this was a year before the book even came out.
Right.
So very few people knew who this was. They were excited at a live workshop if 25 people came. Now they have 250.
Right.
And so it was me going, where are those people? Let me go find those people and start investing in time in those communities. Mm-hmm. And then I'll get clients. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Another thing too is, I thought, how do I find people who are in parallel to what I'm doing? So I'm a copywriter. I don't do design. Let me find a web designer. Let me find a design agency who doesn't have internal copywriters, who can partner with me, and they can bring me business, and then I'll get leads. And that's what happened. Mm-hmm. So it took off 2016. 2017 was just bonkers. I mean, it was, by the end of 2017, I was essentially a full-time equivalent VP of marketing for a $100 million software company in Seattle. And talk about fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
They were asking, my first day, I fly to Seattle, I meet with my boss, who's the interim CMO, and he says, well, we're redoing our pricing structure. Mm-hmm. It's the biggest change in the history of our company so far. They're at $100 million in annual revenue. And he said, and you're leading the project. Oh, by the way, we're halfway done, and it involves every department in the company: operations, legal, finance, marketing, sales, customer success, the executive leadership, and you're in charge. And I said, James, why didn't you tell me this a month ago when you first offered me this role?
Right.
So I was totally making it up, but we got through it and it worked really well.
And this was a contract, basically, right?
I was a full-time contractor, but I was the equivalent of a vice president.
But you also had other clients that you were.
But I had other clients. Yeah, it was a stupid period.
Yeah, bonkers indeed, right?
It was stupid. Crazy.
Tell me about your family work-life balance during that time.
Well, so here I will tell you. So I would fly to Seattle twice a month for 4 days at a time. So I'd leave on Monday morning, get back on Friday at 2:00 Eastern. By the time you get home from the airport, it's 3:30 or 4. So I don't work after that. But I would load my Seattle weeks because I'm still on Eastern time in the Pacific time zone. I'd get up just naturally like 3:30 or 4 Pacific time, work for a couple hours, then go to the office. Same thing at night. So my days in Seattle were 18 hours long. It was stupid. Yeah. But when I got back to Atlanta, those in between weeks, I'd work, frankly a lot less because I was home and whatever. Yeah. So it was stressful and chaotic, but it worked. And so anyways, that was in 2017. 2018 was really busy too. And going to the end of 2018, started to have conversations with a couple of folks, and I thought, you know what, if I'm going to build something that continues to be sustainable, it can't just be me. Like I've got to have a business, a brand that I can refer people to, that I can go sell stuff, bring stuff in, and then help me scale. And so the end of 2018, I got to the point where I was like, you know what, I've got to transition from just being Wes Gay to, my name is Wes, I run a business, or I have a company. Here's who that company is, so I can start to build that up and make it less dependent on me.
And was there a mentor speaking into that need, or did you just kind of arrive at the realization that I need to make this happen?
It was just arriving at the realization. Like I thought,
so the demand or the need basically birthed, the solution. Yeah. The problems kind of present themselves if you don't foresee them, right? So, good. For sure. Okay, so you're just trucking along, paving the road as you're driving down it. So many of us do, but so you found that I got to scale up, or this is going to become that capacity constraint hits, and you're just like, I'm going to burn out. I'm toast if I don't do something.
Or the other challenge is too, or you have to do a lot of hard work to build a really strong personal brand. You either have to go build a personal brand, which I think is a lot harder in a lot of ways than building an agency, because building a personal brand, it even gets hard to attract because at some point you hit a ceiling there and go,
right.
You're getting leads in business, and now what are you doing? You're actually referring people back to some kind of agency or business you've created. So let me start building that and scaling up so that I can do more of what I'm good at and what I like and where I want to grow to, as opposed to just being the constant freelancer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know that's so hard, and there's so many people that want to get there. I feel like even myself, years and years ago, I felt like I really love this area. I love this part about it, but I want to be over here, and I don't know how to get there. It's like these invisible roads, I guess, and that's kind of the spirit of what we're trying to do here. Again, is just to build those connections and bridges, et cetera, and help people kind of shorten that timeline and learn what they don't know. So, there is fake it till you make it and all that, but there's still, you're going to hit a competency, lag or deficiency at some point. So you've got to figure out, and is that a chicken and egg thing? It's like I need the money to hire that person, but I don't have the money until I hire them.
So that's that's a good point. So that's one of the tensions, particularly in our work, where it's you get paid for delivering work, and whether you do, I'm not in the time for money game, so I don't bill hourly. We bill by project just because flat rate's easier. But the reality is, it's like there's this ongoing tension, especially in the early stages, of I could try to go hire somebody to do this for me, but I can't focus on that because I've got this thing that if I deliver it tomorrow, we hit a payment milestone and then we go ahead and get paid. So it's this constant tension of what can I do to get paid today, but what am I doing? What
am I doing today to get paid tomorrow?
Or to get paid tomorrow in 3 months, right? And so it's this constant tension, and I don't know when the tipping point of when it goes away. I'm sure there's a stage where that happens.
You're right.
But there's this constant tension of if I do this now, we get paid this week. If I do this now, I don't see that gain until 3 months from now. And so that's an ongoing tension. I think particularly in the early days, a lot of people face. I think the switch flips more when you get to a certain revenue stage as opposed to a certain time. Because I know people who've been in business for 5 years.
You can do something wrong forever. So
when grad school,
suffer through it.
One of the few things I remember about getting my master's was a book about leadership internationally, and it said. Some people have 20 years of experience, while other people have 1 year of experience 20 times. Right? It's like I know a guy who's run an agency for 5 years. They're over into the 7-figure mark now, And he's not in the work. So he's leading the company, he's building the team, all that. So he's not at that capacity at that point where he's having to focus today on doing client deliverables so they get paid. He's focused on, is my team having everything they need so they can keep this thing moving? Am I bringing in the deals? Like, that's where he's at. But then I know people who've been in business 15 or 20 years, and they're in this constant thing of, well, how do I drum up business? Because within 2 weeks, I think all my clients are gone. And there's this, so it has nothing to do with time. I think it's more of a revenue milestone. And I don't know there's a clear number. So that's one of the tensions. I think the other thing too is you have to have some really, you have to talk to yourself, have some really hard conversations of, how do I get really clear on what I'm actually good at so that I know two things. One, how to give away the stuff I'm not good at. But then two, how do I further clarify what I'm good at so I can train somebody who's pretty good at the things that I excel at to make them better so that I can go do other things. Right, that's the part of growing a business we don't talk about enough is, I actually heard Damon John from Shark Tank talk about this one time. He said, everybody talks about delegate your weaknesses. Absolutely. If you're bad at math, delegate your bookkeeping. Or you could go to jail, right? It's that simple. But if you so you delegate that stuff. But then if there's things you're good at, like if you're good at sales, that's great. But if you want to grow, at some point you have to objectify and quantify what makes you good about sales. And then train somebody else to do that so that you can go help grow the business and do the things you've got to do as your agency or your company scales.
So in terms of being able to hire that person that you're going to apprentice and train, what kind of profit margin should people be expecting? I mean, percentage-wise, to be able to set aside the ability to go hire that person.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just go, hey, can you come work with me, for free? I promise we'll make money eventually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, and it's the same answer of what underwear do I wear at age 90? Depends. Right?
Okay.
I didn't want you to spit water on me because that'd be awkward.
Yeah.
When I make a 90-year-old underwear joke, but it's the reality. It a little bit depends. So when obviously in the creative business, we don't really have cost of goods. Like we watch Shark Tank a lot at our house, and they'll ask you, what's the cost of goods sold? And then I think about it for my business, like there's not really. My cost of goods for a website is like paying the guy to build the website, but his cost of goods is just his time. Like we're not delivering tangible products here. And so there's not really a fixed answer. I would say, what are some creative ways that you could actually bring somebody in? So for example, right now, I've got a guy who's a content writer because I'm out of writing projects for client work. So I can go sell and do some other things and build some things.
So you recognize about yourself, you're stronger at sales than you are at writing, even though you're a great writer.
I know I'm good at writing. It's just
that's not what grows a company.
Right. And so it's like I can invest my time in content for clients all day long.
You can go hire the sales guy and then you do the writing. But
which one becomes the best for the business long term? It's me finding a writer who's pretty good, teaching him everything I know, walking him through everything I know, and walking with him for a few projects, and then kind of letting him go. And so it's for like this guy, for example, we started out with just project by project. Like he's got a few other things. He's a freelancer right now. I'm trying to convince him to come on full time with me, but I want him to feel good about the work first, and I want to make sure I can sell consistently to keep him full. And so maybe you just find somebody a freelancer on your own that you can just contract project by project with and say, okay, all we're gonna do right now is project by project. And at least lets you know that you can do the work to bring in consistently. And then if you're bringing in some kind of a manager level role, salary is gonna range probably 40 to 60K a year, depending on where you live, maybe 35 to 60K plus benefits and all that. So you gotta figure out how much money are you comfortable having saved before you hire somebody.
I liken it to when's the perfect time or right time to have your first child? And you're always like,
there's never one.
Let me just wait till I got my picket fence and my dog and my savings and my 401k or whatever, and then we'll have our kid. It's like, no, and even then you're still like not ready because there'll be some other excuse. It's like, you got to sometimes in many ways just take that
and that's
step.
We're going to pull out of marketing and business for a minute. That's part of the lie that we're all told as we're growing up of how what's next is better, right? So you're like you're in preschool? Oh, just wait till you get to elementary school. You get to elementary school? Oh, just wait till middle school. Right? Middle school. Just wait till high school. Wait till you hit the real world. As if the world that I've been living in prior to being 22 or 23 is not real, right? That's another rant. I'll try to stay off the hot take express, but it's like we are conditioned in a lot of ways to think we can't really enjoy what's now because we believe the lie that what's next is always better and what's next is going to be better suited for X, Y, Z. Not necessarily true, right? Like if you're going to go hire somebody part-time or full-time, it helps to have some money saved aside, but if you trust yourself and know you can do the work and you've already got somewhat of a track record of building a business or of getting business, then you go, you know what? I don't have to have a 5-year plan for how I'm going to cover this employee's expenses. let me just try to build a 90-day plan.
Right.
I think too often in business, what we get hung up on is we want to go top down. Let's go off site and spend 3 days, smoking hookah on the mountain and figuring out mission, vision, values.
Yeah.
And we're going to build create the posters that say eagle, that have eagles on them over the mountain, that say integrity and vision and all this nonsense.
Yeah.
And then none of that's going to matter. But we're not going to, that never gets translated to, okay, what does this mean for today? I think a lot of times the better way to go is, let me just start with today and then tomorrow. And then we're going to build a 45-day, 90-day runway. We're just every day is going to be focused on that, and then over time, that lets me start to pull back and look at the higher level and see where we're actually heading and building. But a lot of times I think it's messier down on the runway because you're actually doing the work.
Yeah.
As opposed to thinking about the work, talking about the work, using all the corporate buzzwords. It's how do I get in the weeds and start doing the things, knowing I can pull back as I get more clarity. I can pull back and then see, okay, this is actually how we're going to do this long term.
I got to back up. I want to talk about, this idea that like, oh, you're weak here. Let's focus on that. We need to bring that up. It's like, no, you're weak there because you're not designed to be strong there. Like, don't focus on that.
Yeah.
Someone else can handle that. This idea that I have to just be good at everything. You got to get all A's in all the subjects because if you don't, now I'm like not as worthy of some. Yeah. I mean, so it was very freeing in that moment. I remember for me just thinking like, man, I'm a people person. I don't have to chase the software. For me, I didn't want to be up at 2 or 3 in the morning trying to, simulate whatever particle effects in Houdini or something. I mean, in my world, there's always something else to learn in production world, post-production or otherwise. But this idea you can go and hire those people. Even if you're a 5 at writing, maybe you can get up to a 7.
Yeah.
Most people, maybe even an 8 if you're lucky, but people hire the 9s and 10s, right?
Yeah.
Maybe if you're an 8. But this idea that, just you can hire that you go do what you can do and what you alone can do, and you can hire those other people.
And think about the amount of work that has to go from being from a 5 to a 7. Right? I mean, think about all the time and energy and sometimes money you got to invest to go from just 5 to 7, and you're still not going to be nearly as good as people who are naturally gifted and that's their strength.
Yep.
But think about all of the time it took you to go from 5 to 7. What if you could invest that in the thing you were already an 8 or 9 at, and now you're a 9 or a 10, right? And exactly. So it's like, where am I? Because time is this resource that we only get to invest once. Unlike money, we can always make more of it. So it's like, if I can invest my time in doing the things better that I'm already naturally good at, particularly in business, what happens over time, ironically, is you get a lot more specific and a lot clearer over what you're good at. And then you can start to know, and this is one of the freeing things, and I'm sure you guys at Form Films know this too. Over time, you start to go, it actually helps. It's freeing because I know who I'm not going to work with because that's just not my wheelhouse. And I know specifically who is and who isn't. It changes your marketing. It can change your product offering. But you just have to get really comfortable and know, you know what? I'm really good here in terms of maybe who I serve or the kind of work I do. And so in order for me to continue being good here, I've got to have other people who are good, but at this thing or at this thing. Right. So now you start to complete that whole piece. Instead of feeling like you said, like I have to be good in every grade in school. The great thing is in business, you can go hire one person to be good at every single thing that you have to be. You can have 6 people be good at your subject areas in school. You can only have one.
It's funny. It makes me think like there's a lot of CEOs out there that I've met that are very successful, but they're not the brightest bulb, right? It's like they've got, you just hire those people. So it's great to think about, as a creative, how you can make that one change and free yourself up to a whole other, tier of work or possibility. There's also an element of humility that has to kick in for that to be able to happen, because a lot of, people can be precious about the way they see things, or
precious is the right. I always joke that writers in general, copywriters in particular, are way too precious about their words. Like, I'm a copywriter. I do digital marketing. I'm not a field medic. I'm not a trauma surgeon. I'm not an astronaut. I'm not in like the pediatric cancer ward. I'm like trying to help people sell stuff, right? It's just not hard. Charles Barkley, NBA great, said there's really only 5 jobs in the world: teachers, doctors, military, firefighters, and police. Everybody else should just shut up and enjoy life. And it's like, it's creative. Again, we get too precious. Right. It's like you're getting to do something you really like and you're really fun, and you're going to meet a lot of new clients, do a lot of really cool things. And I've gotten to be some incredible places. Like being in a small group Q&A with Seth Godin was because I got to I was working with this company and I got to help plan their event. And Seth Godin was the head guy or the main headliner.
Yep.
And it was at the Disneyland Hotel. So I'm at Disneyland for free for 3 days.
Yep.
Hanging out and riding all the rides and doing all the things. It's like,
yep.
yeah, just enjoy it. You know,
Right.
Don't get too precious with every little thing, especially in our world, my world of copywriting, where digital marketing, you can always change it. It's not hard to change your website.
I don't want people watching to think you're just a copywriter. I do, because that's a great point, and that is an element of what you do. But you're ultimately helping people find their way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Helping companies find their way, which I guess is how you landed on the name. Talk about the name behind the agency.
So if anybody's ever seen Moana, you've heard the term Wayfinder is in there. So a Wayfinder in ancient Polynesia was their version of a navigator.
Okay.
But unlike the Europeans, who we often know as the navigators and explorers, who use the compass and the sextant and all those other things, the Wayfinders use the sun, the sea, and the stars to navigate the Polynesian islands.
It goes back thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so my wife ran across that word. We started looking into it. Thought, that's kind of a cool word. It's different. And I always joked that it's eventually, when we can get on planes and travel again, I'll be able to expense a business trip to Hawaii for research. But it's really about, we have some foundational principles.
Pretty sure you got to go to Tahiti as well.
All of them. Just hit them all.
Yeah.
Just do a 3 month.
And it'd be better if you sailed between all of them.
Airplanes. I don't trust myself to sail.
Yeah.
But we don't leverage specific tools like the Europeans did in the navigators to figure out the way forward. We leverage some principles. We leverage ideas like a story-based approach, right? So we use the storytelling principles to get clarity. And again, it comes back to what we're trying to help a company figure out is, what are the right words to say about what you do so the customers understand why you help them, why it solves their problem, and ultimately how they can buy from you.
Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't happen, you're not in business, as you've said.
You are not. You are not in business.
So Wayfinder's the name. What is it? Wayfinder.com?
HireWayfinder.com.
HireWayfinder.com.
Yeah. So what we do, we call brand messaging. So a lot of brands have visual brand guides. So it's it's your logo and your color palette and your fonts and all that jazz, which is great. But more people are going to buy from you if you use the right words consistently, as opposed to, is your logo aspect ratio consistent across every piece of your collateral?
Right.
Nobody really cares.
Right.
Sorry, designer friends. But I'm right. And so what we do is we help people figure out their brand messaging at the overall level. So how do we need to talk about your company in a way customers care? And then that distills down into service lines or products or whatever you do. And then we take that as the foundation. Then we build a lot of new websites. Lead generation, so figuring out how do we capture more leads in to buy our stuff.
Okay.
Email marketing, a lot of copywriting.
You any guerrilla marketing? Or is that even a thing anymore?
We don't typically deal with animals. Yeah. There was one time we helped sell some golden retrievers.
We lost, George in the copy room where the gorilla went wild.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guerrilla marketing. I mean, it's sometimes, this is how I started, is you got to figure out, if you don't have any money for advertising, you don't have money, you have time. Mm-hmm. So how can you invest and go a little guerrilla? In today's world, I think it's easier because you just show up in the Facebook groups and the LinkedIn groups and the places where your target audience is hanging out. Mm-hmm. Just show up and provide value, answer their questions, solve their problems, and then make it really easy for them to hire you for stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you'll start getting business.
I love those either it's a practical implementation of marketing in an environment somewhere you're already at, or if it's the whole thing with classic example. Whoever was at Allstate and figured out we can put our logo on the net when they kick the football through the uprights. Yeah. It's genius.
Brilliant.
Right? I mean, just right there. You're in good hands.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Perfect.
Yeah.
I love stuff like that juxtaposition. So, okay, brand messaging, websites, lead gen, et cetera, et cetera. Did you offer all this stuff right out of the gate, or did you just stack those services on as you went? Or was it demand by clients? Hey, we love this and this. We also need this. You're like, great, we do that too. Fake it till you make it. Now it's a service. Or is it we hired that person? Or
So it was all variations of that. I did it all when I started because that's just what StoryBrand told people they needed.
Yeah.
They said, hey, you need a lead magnet. So I wrote lead magnet. Hey, you need an email campaign. So they'd come to me and say, hey, can you do that? I said, sure.
Yeah.
You need a website. You need XYZ. But over time, it's morphed into being able to, again, back before pre-pandemic, is being on site and taking teams to a whole strategy session to figure it out and map all this stuff out and getting a little more sophisticated, but also, frankly, be able to move more quickly. Mm-hmm. One of the things as creatives I think we underestimate is if you can deliver great work faster, people will actually pay you more for it. Mm-hmm. As long as you get out of the hourly game. Get out of the hourly game, you can do it.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
Oh, mercy. It's the worst game in the world. But the thing is, if you can deliver great work more quickly, you're actually immensely more valuable. And I used to be a little sensitive to that at first. Like, well, am I giving away my secret sauce? Or are they going to feel like undervalued? And it's like, I had somebody you and I both know, a guy named JJ, said, no. He said, I've been in the room where they've paid somebody $50,000 to spend 7 hours with them. And then they are amazed at the volume of stuff that they can get done in 7 hours with the right person. Stuff they wouldn't be able to get done in 7 months on their own. And so once I figured that out, I was like, okay, now I know I can sell higher, I can sell bigger projects to bigger companies, because I know that I can deliver really good work faster, I think, than most people. I actually think my musician background comes into that a bit, but I can deliver great work. And so I can charge a little bit more, and I can go higher scale. I can do bigger things. Where in the beginning it was my first project, I wrote a lead magnet for a dairy farm in Idaho. It was like 3 Christmas recipes that are better with milk. It was ridiculous. Okay. I wrote a website. I wrote, what was my third? It's 3 or 4 that were just super like basic. But it obviously gets more sophisticated, and then you can expand out what you offer. So like right now we're working on an expanded listing presentation for a real estate agent. You know, if they take it in and they close one new client, and that generates a lot of money for them, right? So that's a higher stakes. Would I have offered that at the beginning? I might have, because I just say yes to everything, assuming I can do it. Yeah. Except social media, because I hate doing that. Yeah. But everything else, I go, I can figure that out, and then I'd figure it out. But yeah, over time, it's just grown in terms of the scale and the scope, and sometimes the complexity of it. You know, if you're building out marketing plans, or sometimes email automation gets fancier, but you just learn as you go.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of pricing, we got to go there, right? A lot of creatives, we like to just, we love what we do, so it's easy for us to be like, here it is, sure, undervalue. Here it is, undervalue. Or, those words of affirmation, that confirmation of we're good at what we, I'm worthy, great, awesome. And that sometimes is in place of what the value should have been. So we got hourly, we got project rate. I'll pay you with exposure. That's a good one. So, what thoughts and opinions? What do you got?
Aim high and modify.
Okay.
Next question.
Just kidding.
So I have a lot of thoughts. I think before
that's on the bumpers. I saw that on your bumper sticker.
Yeah, aim high and modify. That's my license plate. So but before we get into some of the details, I think there's a few things we missed. So in the freelance creative marketing space, particularly, there's a lot of rah-rah nonsense about charge what you're worth and raise your prices and you can do it. And that's great if you need to. I think I will say I do think a lot of creatives undervalue and therefore underprice what they do. Yep. Because we tend to think of it in terms of, this is what I think my hourly rate needs to be if I need to make this much money. I need to work this number of hours. So this is what I'm going to charge. But the reality is, one of the problems is we got to think more of outcomes as opposed to inputs. Yep. So stop thinking about the number of hours it's going to take you. What is the outcome of the result that client's going to get? Is your, $1,000 project going to net them $100,000? You underprice that $1,000 because it's also going to take you, frankly, I think, a little more work to produce that $100,000 or whatever it is. So I think the first thing is stop thinking of inputs, start thinking of outcomes, right, to help you with your pricing. The second thing is we've got to make sure that people believe we're worth what we think we're worth, right? This is kind of
the ability to communicate that and carry that is huge.
This is kind of the American Idol problem. Remember the early seasons of American Idol? We only watched it because of the catastrophe that were some of these early contestants. Yeah. And what did they always say? My mama said I could sing. And Simon Cowell's like, your mother lied. Right? I've been taking singing lessons when I was 4. You should get a refund for 20 years of singing lessons. Right. You're terrible. But we sometimes in creative, especially creatives, we tend to get really precious with our work because we tie our work to our identity as separating who you are and what you do and separating those two things out. Because if somebody critiques our work, we think they're critiquing us. They're not. They're critiquing the thing we worked on. Major difference. You are somebody who does a thing. And this is one of the things we miss out in creative. This is creative work, which means it's a job technically. So just like
which also means in many cases it's collaborative.
Yeah, and it was just like any other job on the planet, right? People are going to review and inspect and critique your work. I bet if an inspector comes out and looks at an electrician's work and they criticize or they mark it off a little bit, I don't think that electrician goes home and whines for 3 or 4 days about it and sulks and goes to all his electrician buddies looking for support like us creatives do.
Right, exactly.
He goes, well, I'm going to go back to work and fix it, and then I'm going to go home and enjoy my life. Right? That's what happens. It's a job and it's work. Yeah. So let's not forget that this is still creative work, just like any other job on the planet. We have to make sure people understand the value we deliver to them in how they experience things. So, for example, if you walk into a Cadillac showroom and see an Escalade, they're what? $70,000 or something, brand new, fully loaded, maybe more. that experience supports the perception of that price.
Yeah.
But if I were to walk into a Chevrolet showroom, and I love Chevrolet, my grandmother drove Chevrolet trucks, like everybody in my family's driven Chevrolet trucks. If I walk into a Chevrolet showroom and I see a brand new Escalade at a brand new Escalade price at a Chevrolet Experience, those two things aren't going to match, right? But that's how a lot of creatives are. We think, well, people tell me I'm special and people tell me I'm worth a lot, so I'm just going to presume everybody understands that, and they don't. And so you have to make sure your experience from the content you're consistently putting out on your own marketing channels, whether it's email, social, whatever, your own website. Don't neglect that. Us marketers tend to be our own worst clients. I don't know if you ever run across that.
Like a pipes leak at the plumber's house kind of thing?
Exactly. You're starving children at the baker's home. You're like, wait a second, you own a bakery. Marketers are the worst about that. But the content you're putting out, the perception of things, the look and the feel and everything else, your prospect experience, your proposal, like do all the things support the price that you deliver, so that when they get to a price, it might seem high, but it doesn't seem totally unreasonable.
And you also want to address price early on, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to wait till you've had 6-7 conversations about the project. You've got a proposal. Now I see the price. And, I thought we were talking about,
Sure. And I'll tell you one of the really practical ways I anticipate that is I rarely send a proposal without at least talking to somebody. Usually I have one, maybe 2 calls. But when somebody schedules a call with me, I have a few questions I ask. And one of the questions I ask them is, what's your annual revenue? And it's like 0 to, I give them ranges, 0 to 2, I think 2 to 10, 10 to 50, and maybe 50 plus. And I just stole that from somebody else. So that's not original to me. So if they give me a $0 to $2 million range, and I'm thinking, okay, the average company is going to spend, let's say, a benchmark of 10% on marketing for their annual budget or their annual revenue. So if they're $1 million, they're going to at most spend $100,000 a year on marketing, probably less at that point. The bigger you get, the more you spend, percentage-wise, according to a bunch of CMO surveys. But if they tell me 0 to $2 million, I'm not going to quote some $35,000 deal, because that's going to be way out of, for one project as part of the year. That
doesn't make sense. Unless it's a 6-month engagement or
but
something.
But if they're a $10 to $50 million company, a $35,000 engagement doesn't sound so crazy. So I can adjust my offering and my value pricing based on where the client is. Knowing revenue actually helps. And then I can start to back into, on the sales call, okay, what are your goals with this? What are you trying to accomplish with this? What is the output of this? What is the results? And then start tying my work to their results, as opposed to my work to just my work on an island. Because if I tie to their results and they think, okay, I could make $1 million, this is going to help us make an additional $1 million over the next 12 months. All of a sudden it's like, okay, this price doesn't seem crazy at all. In fact, we need to spend that in order to make this. And so that's a lot of things to start answering your question. Now, in terms of actually doing it, I don't know that I've ever done hourly pricing. I do all project-based. So, there's some things that, like, I've tried to productize. So if you want this, it's this price typically.
Or it's kind of like package, right?
This package. It may range a little bit based on your size. And frankly, if I have more people in your company that I have to talk to, it's going to cost a little bit more, because that just takes longer and it's a little bit harder. But if it's one person, you can use them up quicker. So we have packages that range. But then on the stuff, like you, somebody says, hey, can you make a video for us? You're like, wait a second. What's the price on that? Well, are we shooting on your iPhone like this, like a selfie video? Or are we doing a full-scale production? I don't know. I can't give you a price. Again, same answer as what underwear do you wear at age 95? Depends. So, we have some other ranges based on things, but it's all project-based. I would say, and this is something a friend of mine does, and I actually need to move towards, is have project-based pricing, but just spread it out over a certain number of months. Don't make it some ongoing retainer, but make it more of a month, like an installment agreement, like 6 months for, $5,000 a month for 6 months. They can plan for cash flow. You can plan for cash flow, and it doesn't just, you don't get this weird thing of specific milestones. So I would say, as creatives, I would look more towards that. Maybe it's
installment model.
Installment model, where a set price paid out every month for a set number of months helps you.
And that's different from a retainer.
Right. A retainer is like,
here's a flat rate, it's tied to nothing, and we're just going to throw stuff in there.
It's, for this price, we're going to do this amount of things a month. And then it just becomes in perpetuity. Agency owners, bring it in. We are not factories. We do not run assembly lines. We're not running Lean Six Sigma to increase efficiency. We are trying to deliver things that our clients need to solve their problems, not what we need to solve our business problems. So retainers can be great as long as you know to deliver what your clients need and not what your bottom line needs. We're not an assembly line. Dang it. All right, so back. So retainers can work, and I've found a lot of people want to rush to a retainer at the beginning of a relationship. That's kind of like meeting somebody at a Vegas bar at 11 p.m. And at midnight you're standing in front of Wedding Chapel Elvis.
Yeah.
Those relationships never work.
Yeah.
So instead of seeing somebody as a client with a project-based numbers, like I'm just going to maximize the value of this client this one time, build a relationship. So have a clear set of projects or offerings you can do in the beginning, an initial thing. And then build that up to maybe another project. And then then you'll have a lot more clarity over what a retainer looks like. I mean, I was in Southern California last year meeting with a prospect. I was there to be on site with a client, had a prospect, so I decided to swing by their office. And they said, I think I gave them a 3-month project. And they said, what happens after 3 months? And I looked at the owner and said, I have no idea. And he said, what? I said, I don't know. He said, what are you talking about? I said, I know a little bit about what you've told me about your business so far. I have a hunch about what I think you need. So the reality is, before we get to I can't tell you past month 3 until we do this foundational stuff. Like you have things, for example, your email list is a mess.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you what you're going to need in month 4 until we get that cleaned up and really start understanding some things and get your foundation set. And I literally said, I'm not going to deliver some 12-month, $70,000 proposal because I have no idea what this relationship looks like long term. Come to find out, one of the other people who had put a bid in on that project had delivered a 12-month, $70,000 retainer proposal that had all this stuff in it they didn't need. I didn't mean to blow that guy up in the process. I had no idea until much later.
That's hilarious.
But it's like, you can't tell me what you're going to need long term until you tell me what right now. It's just like, when you met your wife. My guess is you didn't walk up to her the first time you met her and go, hey, what, you want to go get married right now?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, a few nauseating people have a story like that, but that's not Instead, you have adult conversations, you go on dates, you get engaged, you get married. Same thing in business. These are relationships. These are not numbers. These are not margins. These are people. So I want to deliver what they need. And if that's a long-term retainer, great. If not, I know I've delivered something well, and I've delivered a great project for them to be successful.
Speaking of numbers and margins, I know every company has their spreadsheet guy, right? The one who doesn't care what you did and what's being worked on or what, but they're just looking at the pure, here's the number and we don't, can you explain this to me? And that's always, I know, a hard thing, especially if you're doing, video or film, or we're going to produce this content. Yeah. You're going to market it. Like, you can never guarantee almost anything in terms of, we're going to get this many clicks, this much engagement, you're going to have this many sales. I mean, do you have any thoughts around that? I mean, in terms of what you provide, say you do an email funnel or, landing page or revamp a website. Sure. You're not going to promise them that suddenly they're going to triple their business. Nope. So is there a guarantee, or is there a kind of,
I try to guarantee there they'll be satisfied. They'll be excited or satisfied with the work. And usually, there's only been a few times I've ever had somebody's come back and said, hey, this just isn't working. And I'm happy to jump in and just look at it and figure out if something broken. Sometimes they've turned stuff off and didn't know it. Sometimes it's just the sheer fact of they're not actually telling anybody their thing exists, so nobody's seeing it. Yep. Right. So I'm happy to review it. But what I'll say is, I'm going to guarantee that you'll be satisfied and happy with this work. And I can't guarantee you results. I can guarantee you this process works. Now, the degree to which it works varies by a lot of factors. And the more control we have over those factors, the better your results are going to be. If you're trying to build an online funnel where you want automatic business to just come in, but all you're giving me access to is your email marketing, I'm just a piece of an overall system here. If I go to Costco, they're going to guarantee my tires are going to work. Right. They're not going to guarantee that my engine's going to run and all these other things because they don't have any control over that. They just replace the tires. So if I'm just doing a specific thing, I can only guarantee they're going to be satisfied with my work, and then I know this process works, and they have to trust me to do it. Yep. I can't guarantee. I don't guarantee dollar amounts.
As long as we're serving and working with humans to reach and communicate with humans, it's like you're never going to have any kind of, and it seems like companies don't understand that. A lot of times they just think, this is what, we expect or thought, or, and it's just like, guys, if this were true, look at Hollywood, how, Hollywood's been making films for over 100 years and they still haven't figured it out. So we're not going to figure it out today with your little, piece that you're wanting to produce.
It's, one of the things I think creatives can really differentiate themselves is position you and your company as somebody to be trusted. People will often hire who they trust whether or not that is the best.
Whether or not it's the best, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Whether or not it's the best output. Whether it's not is it the best looking website or the best.
Hence the success of Apple.
Oh, jeez. My iPhone has a problem with your smack talk.
Let me see here. My Android's doing great.
I mean, who hit $2 trillion in market valuation first? But Apple.
Yeah,
I digress.
Yeah,
I digress.
It's because they're the most trusted. You just made the point.
Most
not the best.
Especially because if you've been in business for more than 22 minutes, you have scars, wounds, and horror stories of working with outside creatives. You just do.
Right.
Because there's a lot of, as The Rock in the 90s would say, jabronis out there.
Jabronis.
And there's a lot of creative jabronis. And so it's this problem of, like, you're dealing with all these tensions. But if they can trust you and trust that you're going to deliver and you're going to support them, they'll almost buy anything you sell them if they trust you first. Mm-hmm. A lot of creatives want to get people to just trust the work and not trust the person. But the goal is, how do we get the balance of trusting both? Trust my process, trust the work we do, but also trust me. I'm going to help you. So that means, and I'll tell people, hey, listen, we're going to do this for you. I'll check back in 3 months and see how it's going. And sometimes I just tell them I'm going to do that. Sometimes I don't. Mm-hmm. Hey, how's it going? What's working? What's not working? And they'll say, hey, it's working great. Or, hey, I'll be honest, we spent all this money. We're a little frustrated because we're not getting the leads. Hey, great. Let's jump on a call for free. You've already paid us money. Let's figure out how to make this thing work. What's missing? What do you need? Mm-hmm. This is not an upsell. This is just, if something's broken, let's fix it.
Right.
So that you feel satisfied. And ultimately, this is what we want to make sure we tie it back to. You get a return on your investment. We've got to realize that if we want to be trusted and we want to be believed and basically able to charge better prices, do people understand that our work is going to tie to revenue and our work is going to support growing their business? Mm-hmm. If you're seen as that, it gets a lot easier to sell and a lot easier to charge.
But we can't promise anything.
Right.
So it is a very delicate like seesaw or dance because on one hand you want to tie it to the revenue, but on the other hand we just got through saying you can't commit that any revenue will come. You know what I mean?
I can't commit anything specifically. What I can tell people is I know this process works.
We can help you grow, but we're not going to say we're going to grow to this.
Yeah, I never say we're going to grow to this. I'll tell you what the results I've seen, the results my clients have experienced. And I can tell you sometimes there are things that we just have to go fix. Like, again, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
So you have to set expectations really clearly.
You've got an incredible story. I want you to be able to share this. People waste a ton of money trying to get there. Yeah. Because they think this little thing is going to make this difference. You got a funny story to share about that involving
lavender fields in France. Yeah, I wasn't there. So, one of I said this early on. What we do is we help companies figure out what to say. Yeah. I just finished writing 6 video scripts to help raise $50 million for a nonprofit center in the Northeast. They had to get the words right. I'm going to work on a real estate thing tomorrow. I'm working on a landing page this afternoon. Like it's all about the words because. Even though we're in a visual society, right? Instagram and TikTok and the social media and everything else, we're watching YouTube all the time and we're watching streaming services all video. Yep. We still respond to and engage with words, whether it's the words we hear or the words we read. So companies don't invest enough in thinking about are the things that we're saying or people reading, are they actually what people need? Do they mean anything? So I talked to somebody last year, as a friend of mine, who worked for a global PR agency. And she had gone through the story brand thing. So she's all about this kind of clear messaging and realizing how, especially big brands or people who pretend to be really important, want to be really confusing and complicated. And so the week after she had gone through story brand, we were going back and forth on LinkedIn about a potential client. And she wanted me to bring me in on. She said, I just left a meeting where we watched a 2-minute video. And she didn't tell me who the company was. It was a $600,000 video project. Where she said literally it was like somebody running through the lavender fields of France. And I can't tell you, except for the fact that the client was in the room, I didn't know who the business was. I had no idea what they did. I didn't know what they wanted to do. I couldn't figure out what lavender had to do with it. She said it wasn't essential oils. So I have no idea what lavender was for. I don't know why we were in France. And she said they spent $600,000 and the client loved it. They thought it was great. And then she said, I'm sitting here thinking, you could spend like $30,000 or $15,000 on getting your messaging right, and even just some basic digital marketing, and you're going to make way more. You'll make $600,000, and you don't have anybody running through lavender fields in France. Yeah, because we tend to think we're important, or we tend to think we have to be complicated. When the reality is, getting to clear, simple, or clear ideas is hard. Mm-hmm. It's a lot harder to be clear and simple than it is to be complicated and confusing. Mm-hmm.
That's why there's a whole other process around that we can talk about like next time.
Yeah, it's about editing, cutting out the stuff that's good, but it's not the best. And it's not, particularly in the marketing context, is it going to engage your audience to actually take action and buy from you? Because if they just watch you, it's like, well, lavender fields in France look fun, but I mean, I don't know.
But what do you do and how do I buy from you?
What am I buying? Am I buying a lavender field? Am I like, is this like one of those things where I can buy a spot on Mars, I can buy a spot in a French lavender field? Like, what's happening?
Am I going to France?
Do we social distance in there? Is it lavender masks? Like,
yeah.
Do you get croissants when you go to the field?
Yeah.
Like, all these questions.
Yeah. You've got all this experience, all this wisdom you're imparting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, hope you guys are listening. But I know along the way you've hit some roadblocks, you've hit some walls, you've probably fallen on your face a few times.
Yep.
We like to say we just kind of fall forward around here and, school of hard knocks, pave the road as we're driving, all that stuff. What are some of those life lessons or business lessons that you've learned along the way that you'd like to share? I mean, anything you know now that you wish you'd known before, or epic failure stories, embarrassing moments?
We'll avoid the really embarrassing ones. I would say one of the things, if I could go back, and I've had people ask me this, if I could go back and start over, I would work just as hard building my own audience intentionally as I would for myself as I do for everybody else from day one, building an email list.
Which is an equal full-time job.
Which is not easy, right? And that's why we don't do it.
That's exactly why the pipes leak at the plumber's house.
You build it up, though, and you have an audience now you can start to sell to, and they'll reach out, and it's a great now resource of leads. So that's one thing I would go back and do. Another thing that's been an ongoing struggle, and I think I've gotten a lot better at it. I've always worked from home, right? We just have had the space to do it. And I realize not everybody can. I mean, we're in a remote work world right now because of the pandemic. But the reality is one of the reasons that's been so hard is because a lot of people don't live in houses where they can have a home office. Yeah. It's the kitchen table, it's the bed, it's the sofa. Like, you just don't have a dedicated space to work. I've been fortunate enough to have that. The problem can be, though, and before we bought a house last year, the rental we lived in, my office was just off the kitchen. So I could literally basically see work at any time, almost any time in the house. And if you're not careful and you work from home, and particularly you're a solopreneur or running a business based out of your house, you don't make those create that mental space between work and home stuff.
You're always at work.
And this is one of the things I've seen a lot of people complain about since earlier this year when everybody started working from home. It was like they feel like they're always on work mode now. And I started telling people, like, you got to have a mental commute. One of the values of having an office, I would think, one of the few, is that you literally get time to ease into the workday and then ease back out.
There's an on and off ramp.
And most of us think, I'm going to here's my set time. I've told my spouse or my significant other or myself, I'm going to stop working. We stop and we immediately walk out the door. Within 60 seconds, we're back into the craziness of home life. You've got to have a mental break, or else there's just, our brains aren't desired to switch that quickly. So I've gotten better at it early on. Again, I was building the runway. So I was doing everything I could. There were times I'd work a lot of hours. Because our kids were so young, I always wanted to be intentional of being available and taking advantage of owning my own thing. But it became this thing of, how do I make sure I'm not working all the time, but at the same time I'm still putting the work in that I need to do? And it was that tension of figuring out what that is. How do we enjoy life and enjoy this gift we've given of owning our own business and kind of having a solopreneur style, but at the same time still build something that really provides and grows. Another thing that I would do, and this is something I've gotten back into lately, there's a book called Getting Things Done by a guy named David Allen. It's 20 years old.
Yeah, I had a CD set from that. Yeah,
it's a productivity method, and I've read it several times. I need to read it again to really make it stick. The one thing that he recommends everybody does is what's called a weekly review. Literally set aside 1 to 2 hours every Friday morning, Friday afternoon, but probably better on Fridays, and do a few things. One, clean out all of what he calls your inboxes. So if you put paper in your receipts in your wallet, or paper in your bag, or random notes in your notebook, look at all those things you've just collected throughout the week and just review it and say, okay, what do I need to do with this? Is this a task I need to follow up with somebody on? Do I need to send something to somebody? Do I need to scan this receipt for business expense? Let me just collect all of those random things. And it doesn't take as long as you think. And then let me go back and look at my calendar over the past week. Let me just think back through those conversations. Did I commit to things that I need to do that I forgot to put in my task list to do later? Or does it spark some kind of creative idea that I need to tackle, whatever? And then let me look at the next couple of weeks, what's coming up, and just literally that kind of review. And let me look at a projects list of everything going on. And do I have everything, just stay up to date? That discipline and putting that pillar in your week, I think makes it, I can tell my weeks are radically different when I do it versus when I don't. Because when I do it, I feel a lot clearer about where we're at with client projects. I'm a lot less likely to be the bottleneck because I'll review and go, oh man, I got to get that done. Let me just go ahead and do it because it'll take me really 90 seconds to send that email. Because there have been a couple of times where projects have taken a lot longer than they should because I became the bottleneck.
Yep.
Because I didn't take time to define the next step. Like literally, what is the next single move that we need to make in order to move this thing forward? Because I would just never give myself time to just sit and review. And so I think that review really gives you a lot of clarity and make sure you get all of the tasks out of your head because as David Allen says, our brains are for thinking about things, not remembering things. And as creatives, the blessing and the curse that we have, our brains are always on. I cannot tell you how many times, even this week, I've had an idea for a headline or a subject line or copy of a website for myself or for a client project at the most inopportune times. Yeah. Like cutting up cauliflower last night to endure eating mashed cauliflower because it's healthier than potatoes. Unfortunately,
my wife can make some mean mashed cauliflower.
It's I put cheese on it and I didn't have any bacon, but I tried to do it.
You do cauliflower rice. That's really good too.
I mean, really good is relative.
I need to.
Your doctor says it's really good. How Benihana's and all the fried rice joints say no.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it's like I'm sitting there working on something and I had an idea, something just hit me for a project. So I immediately thought, I can either remember this, even though I'm going to forget it, or I can make a note of it. I pulled my phone out real quick, made a note, and now I'm going to go back and review it literally tomorrow after we record this. And so I think those are some things that I would do every week without fail is that review process. And then it becomes like, everybody has a version of this, giving more stuff away sooner and being confident to give stuff away. Like I hired an assistant. I wasn't even a year into being on my own. I was like, I just can't keep up with all the admin stuff anymore. So I hired an assistant at 5 hours a week, moved her up to 10 about a year later. And even now it's like, what are some other things I can continue to give away? Just admin stuff that is occupying space in my brain or on my list that I need to get rid of so that I can invest more time in being creative in my business and growing it and got some ideas for new products and service offerings for my own business that I can invest time and energy and resources in to scale that as opposed to chasing random stuff.
So I want to sidetrack over here to the personal assistant for a second. Heard a lot about it. Never had one myself.
Yeah.
I've always thought, you know what? You could hire that person, but then by the time I talk to them about what I need them to do, I probably could have already done it. Like, is that, I know that maybe you just need to, how does that work for you? Do you just meet for like 30 minutes and load them up with like 5 hours of work? Or?
Yeah. So the way it works for me is a few things. One, there's a difference between delegating ongoing responsibilities and then ongoing tasks. It's like my virtual assistant has ongoing responsibilities. Like
that makes sense.
One of the things, because I have so many people wanting on my calendar all the time, is I just have stopped doing my calendar because I have people who will text me, email me, hit me on like all the social channels, say, hey, can we connect? And I have double booked myself more than once because I'll commit to somebody on like a LinkedIn message and then forget to put it on my calendar. And then they're like, hey, where are you at? And I'm like, oh, my bad. I didn't put on my calendar. I had another thing. So I just immediately say, hey, can you email me a time you want to get together and we'll chat and we'll find a time to chat. Unless it's you, of course. And then you text me, we'll find it. We always find it.
Make way.
But so that's one of the things, managed calendar. She actually will review a lot of my email stuff just because I get a lot of things that somebody else could answer. You know, it's like, hey, where's this? Do you have, she has all my tax forms or things for new projects if people need a W-9, whatever. So there's some responsibilities that she has, and we'll review those occasionally. And sometimes I'll have.
There's got to be a high level of trust there too, because you're inviting this person in at a high level to take care of some sensitive things.
That's why I actually used a company called Belay based here in Atlanta that specializes in that, so they can find great people. And I told them I want somebody who's got project management experience and has copy editing experience because I'm putting out a lot of content. Sure enough, they found somebody who used to work in a marketing agency, was a project manager, and was a copy editor. Then it becomes, okay, here's my responsibilities, and then here's tasks. So we meet on Mondays for 30 minutes every week. And we'll review projects, and they're usually, because I've done my weekly review, I've said, okay, these are some things that need to happen. Here are these things that are project related, and then sometimes it's just random, ad hoc, just stuff. Delegate those over. And I'm like you, I'm usually will think, well, I could just do it. But the problem there is we forget that it's not just about doing it, but it's the mental space that it takes up.
Context switch.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine years ago told me every time we context switch, it takes like 17 minutes or so. I don't know where he gets it. He might have just made it up. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it was like some stat basically around there's a set amount of time on average that it takes you to get back into a groove that you just left a minute ago to change tasks.
Yep.
So there's all this time that gets lost in between the task switching and context switching in our brains.
Yeah, so it's the mental capacity, it's the mental space, it's the time space it takes. And then there's some things. It's like as you grow as a business, you have to start having this conversation of, this could take me 20 minutes, or this could take me 30 minutes, let's say. But is that the most profitable use of my 30 minutes? Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to be like that. And that sounds a little diva-ish, but the reality is, if you're going to build a business or run a business, you have to have those conversations with yourself to decide, what's the best use of my time for the sake of what I'm trying to build? Is it to do this task that, it could take me 30 minutes, an hour? Or is it to take 10 minutes to give that away? Now I can offload everything about that task, and then instead take that 30 minutes an hour and focus on something else that's going to generate revenue for the business, or generate new leads, or build a new thing out, or move what we're doing forward, as opposed to, well, I got to go do this for a half hour, an hour.
Mm-hmm. This has been awesome. Good information. Lots more we could talk about, I'm sure, as we can tell. But where are you at right now today? What are you excited about? Where's Wayfinder going?
Sure.
What's got you fired up?
Yeah. So right now I'm in Alpharetta, Georgia.
Yeah, that's good.
North of Atlanta.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
whatever. Time, location in 2020 means nothing anymore. So where we're at right now is we help primarily B2B and then B2C services companies get their messaging right, and then all the marketing and a lot of times sales collateral that goes along with it. Where we're headed is to do more of that on the project side, but then also we're building out and launching we're calling our virtual marketing manager. Okay. So instead of hiring an internal marketing person and then having to build a strategy and manage them, you hire us, we go out and find somebody, you pay us, we pay your contractor, but we help you manage them after we've built your marketing plan and we've built your messaging plan. And it's like having the power of an agency, but the convenience of a team member. Mm-hmm. So instead of hiring an agency on retainer and paying all these $150, $250 an hour for an agency to do stuff, pay significantly less for somebody that you can have that's like a team member in your office, but you only have to have them, say 40 hours a month instead of having to pay somebody part-time or full-time. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things we're really excited about heading.
Very cool.
Also working on late 2020, early 2021. One of the things we've discovered with marketing is, with most companies, when you get into marketing, you actually expose all the problems of the business.
Oh, yeah.
Because literally I've been in rooms with companies that say, hey, tell me how customers buy from you, particularly B2B. Mm-hmm. And I'll just sit back and chaos ensues. Because you're uncovering sales problems, you're uncovering product problems, delivery problems together. So late 2020, early 2021, we're going to offer business coaching groups to help people scale their businesses and build healthier businesses overall, not just by generating more revenue, but is your mission statement right? Mm-hmm. Is your mission statement clear?
Chiropractically adjust the whole company.
Mm-hmm. Let's fix everything. And so we're launching that in 2021.
Huge value. Good.
And then I'm an Enneagram 3. I tend to think big picture. So my guess is, before I get home from this interview today, I'll have 3 more domain names for ideas that I want to buy.
Yeah, and another watch you'll be wearing, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a Fitbit. Trying to stay in shape, but or get in a better shape.
I feel like I'm getting in shape.
Yeah, feel it. I mean, I'm in a shape. It's just not the shape I want to be in.
Right, sure. So, aren't we all?
I'm more in like Thor in-game shape. I'd rather be like Thor
working towards an Infinity War.
I'm more like Thor Ragnarok is where I'm headed.
Okay, that's good. That's where I want to go. Shave that head.
I'm good.
Good luck. Well, man, thanks for being here, dude. This has been awesome. I know I've learned a lot. I know that viewers have learned a lot, I'm sure. Tell them how they can get a hold of you if they want to hire you or get some coaching or otherwise.
Sure. Find me on Twitter at Wes Gay. I am Instagram at Wes Gay. I'm LinkedIn.com/whatever/Wes Gay, because they don't have simple URLs.
Right.
I'm on the Facebook.
Yeah.
So who catches the Facebook, Wes Gay. And then you can email me, wes@wesgay.com. You can check out our website, hirewayfinder.com.
Okay. H-I-R-E.
H-I-R-E.
Got
yes.
it. Yep.
Like pay us money, Wayfinder.
Yeah, pay us money.
Hire, yes.
Wayfinder. You should own that too, just forwards. Yeah. Pay us money. All right. Thank you, Wes. I appreciate that. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest Creative Table episodes. Maybe the next one will be with Wes. Who knows? Dive deeper on all the topics where art and business intersect. Until next time, take care, guys. We'll see you then. Wes, cheers.
Cheers.